Most people believe they miss financial success because they don't earn enough money, because they didn't buy Apple early, because they don't know the next winning stock. But according to Warren Buffett, that's almost never the real reason. The truth is far more uncomfortable. The habits quietly shaping your financial future every single day are usually invisible until years have already passed. By the time most people recognize them, they've already lost decades of compounding, thousands of opportunities, and the freedom they thought they would someday have. Buffett didn't become one of the richest investors in history because he discovered secret investments. He became wealthy because he mastered ordinary habits that almost everyone else ignores. In today's documentary, we're going to uncover the wealth habits that silently separate millionaires from everyone else. Not flashy tricks or get-rich-quick strategies, but timeless principles Buffett has lived by for decades. And if you can recognize these habits today instead of 10 years from now, you may completely change the direction of your financial future. So before you invest another dollar, make another purchase, or make your next financial decision, stay with me until the end. Because the most expensive financial mistakes are rarely the ones that happen overnight. They're the habits you never notice until it's too late. Every morning, millions of people wake up and do the exact same thing before they've even finished their first cup of coffee. They open their phones, scroll through financial headlines, watch market predictions, and search for the next investment that promises to change their lives. One expert says the market is about to crash. Another predicts a historic rally. Social media is filled with people claiming they've discovered the next stock that will make ordinary investors rich overnight. It feels exciting. It feels productive. But according to Warren Buffett, this constant search for the next big opportunity is one of the biggest reasons so many people never build lasting wealth. The uncomfortable truth is that most investors aren't losing because they lack information. They're losing because they're overwhelmed by too much of it. Every headline convinces them to change direction. Every prediction makes them question their plan. Instead of allowing their investments to grow, they spend years reacting, switching strategies, chasing trends, and believing that success is always hiding in tomorrow's news. Buffett's life followed a completely different path. While the world obsessed over market noise, he focused on something almost invisible. Habits. Quiet, repetitive behaviors that rarely make the front page but quietly determine a person's financial future. He understood that extraordinary wealth isn't usually created by extraordinary moments. It's created by ordinary decisions repeated thousands of times without seeking applause or immediate rewards. Think about that for a moment. Imagine two people earning the same income. One spends every evening searching for the hottest investment everyone is talking about. The other spends that same hour reading annual reports, learning about businesses, improving their judgment, and patiently waiting for opportunities that truly make sense. At first, there seems to be no difference between them. Weeks pass. Months pass. Even a few years may go by without anything remarkable happening. But beneath the surface, something powerful is beginning to compound. This is where most people become impatient. They mistake silence for failure. They assume that because nothing dramatic is happening, they must be falling behind. So they abandon the habits that actually create wealth and return to chasing excitement. Buffett often reminds investors that the stock market transfers money from the impatient to the patient. That isn't simply an investing principle. It's a principle for life itself. The financial world constantly rewards attention-grabbing stories because excitement sells. Slow discipline doesn't. Nobody writes headlines celebrating someone who quietly invested every month for 30 years. There are no breaking news alerts announcing that another investor simply stayed consistent today. Yet these invisible actions are the very behaviors that have quietly created countless millionaires. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about wealth is believing that success comes from discovering something nobody else knows. Buffett proved the opposite. The principles have always been available. Spend less than you earn. Invest in businesses you understand. Keep learning. Avoid emotional decisions. Stay patient. None of these habits sound revolutionary, which is exactly why so many people overlook them. The irony is almost impossible to ignore. The habits that look boring today often become the stories everyone admires 20 years later, while the exciting opportunities that capture everyone's attention today are frequently forgotten just as quickly. And hidden inside that contrast is a lesson that becomes even more powerful when we examine the one habit Buffett believes protects every dollar before it ever has the chance to grow. Most people believe that becoming wealthy is all about finding the next big opportunity. They spend years asking one question: how can I make more money? But Warren Buffett has spent his entire career asking a very different question: how can I avoid losing the money I already have? That single shift in thinking separates ordinary investors from extraordinary ones. Imagine spending 20 years climbing a mountain. Every careful step takes patience, discipline, and effort. Then, in one careless moment, you lose your footing. The fall doesn't erase one day of progress, it erases years. Buffett understood that building wealth works the same way. A few bad financial decisions can destroy decades of disciplined investing. This is why one of his most famous investing rules sounds almost too simple. Rule number 1: never lose money. Rule number 2: never forget rule number 1. Buffett isn't suggesting that investments will never fluctuate or temporarily decline. Markets naturally rise and fall. What he warns against is permanent loss, the kind caused by emotional decisions, excessive debt, speculation, or investing in businesses you never truly understood. Think about how many people become excited during booming markets. Prices climb, headlines celebrate easy profits, and suddenly everyone believes they're a financial expert. Friends begin recommending investments. Social media fills with success stories. It becomes incredibly difficult to stay rational when everyone around you seems to be getting rich. That excitement is exactly where Buffett becomes more cautious, not more aggressive. One of his greatest strengths has never been predicting the future. It's been refusing to participate in opportunities that don't make sense. He has often watched entire industries become wildly popular while choosing to do absolutely nothing. To most people, doing nothing feels like missing out. To Buffett, doing nothing is sometimes the smartest investment decision you can make. The reason is simple. Every dollar you lose has to work twice as hard to recover. Lose 50% of your investment, and you don't need a 50% gain to break even. You need a 100% gain just to return to where you started. Most investors underestimate how devastating permanent losses can be because they're focused only on potential rewards while ignoring the risks quietly waiting beneath them. This mindset extends far beyond investing. Buffett has always been careful about debt, unnecessary expenses, and financial commitments that reduce flexibility. He understands that wealth isn't measured only by what you earn. It's measured by what you manage to keep. Someone earning a modest income with disciplined financial habits often builds greater long-term wealth than someone earning twice as much but constantly exposing themselves to unnecessary risks. Perhaps that's why Buffett has never been interested in appearing clever. He would rather look patient than brilliant, cautious than exciting. Because in the long run, avoiding major mistakes creates more wealth than chasing spectacular victories. While most people are busy asking how to get richer as quickly as possible, Buffett quietly focuses on staying in the game long enough for compounding to do its work. And once you understand why protecting wealth matters more than chasing it, another surprising truth begins to emerge. Some of the smallest decisions you make every single day may have a far greater impact on your financial future than the biggest investment you'll ever make. If you asked most people what creates a millionaire, they would probably describe one life-changing moment. A brilliant investment, a successful business, a massive promotion, a lucky break that changed everything overnight. It's an exciting story, and that's exactly why people believe it. But Warren Buffett's life tells a completely different story. His fortune wasn't built on one extraordinary decision. It was built on thousands of ordinary ones that most people would never even notice. The surprising part is that these decisions rarely feel important when they're made. Choosing to save instead of spend. Reading another chapter instead of watching another hour of entertainment. Waiting before making an investment instead of acting on emotion. These actions don't create immediate rewards, which is why they're so easy to ignore. But Buffett understood something that most people never truly appreciate. The smallest habits often carry the greatest long-term consequences. Imagine placing a single drop of water into a bucket. It seems meaningless. One drop changes nothing. But repeat that action every day for years, and eventually the bucket overflows. Wealth follows the same pattern. Every financial decision is another drop. Most people only pay attention when the bucket is already full, never realizing that the outcome was determined by thousands of tiny choices made long before anyone noticed. This explains why Buffett has always valued consistency over intensity. He never tried to look busy. He didn't feel pressured to make constant trades or chase every opportunity. Instead, he developed routines that quietly improved his judgment year after year. Reading for hours each day wasn't exciting. Studying businesses wasn't glamorous. Saying no to unnecessary risks didn't attract headlines. Yet these habits steadily increased the quality of every future decision he would make. Now compare that with the average person. Many people spend months searching for the perfect investment while ignoring the financial habits they repeat every single day. They look for shortcuts but overlook the routines that quietly shape their future. A few unnecessary purchases each week seem harmless. Delaying investments until next year feels insignificant. Ignoring financial education because life feels busy appears reasonable. None of these choices seem dangerous on their own. The problem is that life doesn't judge one decision. It judges the pattern. Buffett often reminds us that chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. At first, your daily choices barely seem to matter. You don't notice the opportunity cost of money you didn't invest. You don't notice the knowledge you never gained because you stopped learning. You don't notice the years quietly passing while you wait for the perfect moment to begin. Then one day you look back and realize those seemingly insignificant decisions have shaped your entire financial life. What's remarkable is that compounding doesn't care whether your habits are good or bad. It simply multiplies whatever you repeat. Good financial habits become extraordinary results. Poor financial habits become expensive regrets. The process is slow enough to feel invisible but powerful enough to completely transform a person's future. This raises an even more fascinating question. If small daily actions quietly determine where your money goes, what determines whether you'll stay consistent with those actions for decades? Buffett believed the answer had very little to do with intelligence and almost everything to do with mastering one quality that modern society makes increasingly difficult to practice. We live in a world that rewards speed. Food arrives in minutes. Messages travel instantly. News changes every hour. With just a few taps on a screen, people expect immediate results in almost every area of life. Unfortunately, many bring that same mindset into investing, believing that wealth should grow as quickly as everything else around them. Warren Buffett has spent decades proving that this expectation is one of the greatest enemies of long-term success. One of the biggest misconceptions about Buffett is that he became wealthy because he always found the perfect investment. The reality is much less dramatic. His greatest advantage wasn't simply knowing what to buy. It was knowing when to wait. Buffett has often gone months, sometimes even years, without making a major investment because he refused to lower his standards simply to stay busy. Think about how uncomfortable waiting feels today. When markets are rising and everyone around you seems to be making money, patience can feel like failure. Every headline creates urgency. Every success story makes you wonder if you're falling behind. Friends start talking about investments that doubled overnight. Social media convinces you that everyone else has discovered opportunities you're somehow missing. The fear of being left behind quietly becomes stronger than the desire to make wise decisions. Buffett recognized this psychological trap long before most people understood it. He knew that investing is not a competition to see who acts first. It's a test of who can remain disciplined the longest. He once compared investing to baseball, with one important difference. In baseball, the umpire eventually forces you to swing. In investing, there are no called strikes. You can watch hundreds of opportunities pass by and simply wait for the one you truly understand. That idea sounds simple, yet very few people practice it. Most investors feel pressure to constantly buy, sell, adjust, and react because action creates the illusion of progress. Doing something feels productive, even when it isn't. Waiting, on the other hand, often feels uncomfortable because there are no immediate rewards. But Buffett understood that inactivity isn't laziness when it's supported by careful thinking. Sometimes the most profitable decision is the one you choose not to make. This same patience extends beyond the stock market. Buffett didn't expect his wealth to appear within a few years. He trusted the power of compounding to work over decades. That's why he began investing while he was young and allowed time to become his greatest business partner. Most of his fortune wasn't created in his 20s or 30s. It accelerated much later because he gave compounding enough time to perform its quiet miracle. The challenge is that human nature constantly pushes us in the opposite direction. We want proof that our efforts are working. We want immediate rewards for today's discipline. When those rewards don't appear, many people abandon their strategy just before it begins producing meaningful results. They mistake slow progress for no progress, forgetting that the strongest trees spend years growing roots before anyone notices their height. Buffett's extraordinary patience wasn't a personality trait he was born with. It became a habit he practiced repeatedly, trusting that disciplined decisions would eventually outperform emotional ones. And while patience gives your investments time to grow, Buffett believed there is one investment that begins paying returns long before any stock, business, or market ever can, a habit so powerful that it quietly improves every financial decision you'll make for the rest of your life. If Warren Buffett could take away every stock he owns, every company in his portfolio, and every dollar he has earned, there is one investment he would still refuse to lose. It isn't a business. It isn't real estate. It isn't even Berkshire Hathaway. It's the ability to think clearly, make sound decisions, and continuously improve himself. Buffett has often said that the most valuable asset you'll ever own is yourself, because every financial decision you make begins with the person making it. This idea is surprisingly easy to overlook. Most people spend years searching for better investments while rarely asking whether they are becoming better investors. They look outside themselves for opportunities but ignore the quality of the judgment that determines every opportunity they choose. Buffett understood that the greatest returns don't always come from owning better assets. They often come from becoming a wiser person. That's one reason he has devoted so much of his life to reading. Long before the opening bell rings on Wall Street, Buffett has already invested hours into learning. Books, annual reports, company filings, history, biographies. He consumes knowledge not because he wants to appear intelligent, but because every lesson quietly sharpens his future decisions. He knows that one better decision today can create opportunities that continue paying dividends for decades. Now imagine two investors with exactly the same amount of money. One constantly looks for shortcuts, hoping someone else will tell them what to buy. The other spends years developing patience, emotional discipline, and independent thinking. At first, they may achieve similar results. But as time passes, their paths begin to separate. One becomes increasingly dependent on predictions, opinions, and market noise. The other becomes increasingly confident in making decisions based on understanding rather than emotion. Eventually, the gap between them has very little to do with money and almost everything to do with mindset. Buffett has never claimed to have a higher IQ than everyone else. In fact, he has repeatedly suggested that emotional control is more valuable than raw intelligence in investing. Many brilliant people fail financially because they cannot manage fear, greed, or impatience. When markets fall, panic replaces logic. When markets rise, excitement replaces discipline. Intelligence alone cannot protect someone from emotions they never learned to control. This is why Buffett believes your habits of thinking determine your financial future long before your investments do. Every book you read expands your perspective. Every mistake you honestly examine improves your judgment. Every decision you make with patience, instead of impulse, strengthens the person who will face the next opportunity. Over time, you're not simply building wealth, you are building someone capable of creating and protecting it. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson Buffett leaves behind. Money can be lost, markets can crash, economies can change, but the ability to think independently, remain disciplined, and continue learning is an asset no market can take away. It quietly compounds inside you, influencing every financial decision for the rest of your life, which is why the people who achieve lasting wealth rarely begin by asking, "What should I invest in?" They begin by asking a far more important question: "Who am I becoming while I build it?" The remarkable thing about Warren Buffett's philosophy is that none of these habits are hidden. They aren't reserved for billionaires, Wall Street professionals, or people born with extraordinary talent. They've been available to everyone all along. Yet most people overlook them because they seem too ordinary to create extraordinary results. Wealth isn't built by chasing headlines. It's built by repeating the right habits long after the excitement has disappeared. It grows when you protect your money before trying to multiply it. It accelerates through small daily decisions that seem insignificant today but become life-changing over decades. It rewards those who can remain patient while others rush toward the next opportunity. And perhaps most importantly, it belongs to the people who never stop investing in their own knowledge, character, and judgment. If there's one message to remember from everything we've discussed, it's this: your financial future is being shaped long before your next investment. It's being shaped by the habits you practice every day, the choices you make when no one is watching, and the mindset you carry into every financial decision. Years from now, you won't remember every market prediction or every trending stock. But you will live with the consequences of the habits you choose today. That's the quiet power of compounding. It doesn't just multiply your money, it multiplies your discipline, your patience, and your decisions. Warren Buffett once said that someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. The question is whether you're planting your own tree today or continuing to wait for the perfect moment that may never come. The good news is that you don't need to change your entire financial life overnight. You only need to begin with one better habit, then another, and another. Because lasting wealth is rarely the result of one brilliant decision. It's the outcome of thousands of wise ones made consistently over time. If you found value in this documentary, take a moment to subscribe and join us for more timeless lessons on investing, wealth building, and financial psychology inspired by the world's greatest investors. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, which of these 5 wealth habits do you think will have the biggest impact on your financial future? Your answer might inspire someone else to begin building a better future today.